1,000 subscribers. I didn't expect it to ever happen. Thank you guys so much. And as promised, I've got a Q&A video for you today. And our first question is, what is my deck building process? Well, I've recorded one of my examples for you just so you can kind of get a bit of an idea of how I make decks. Okay, so let's assume that we're trying to build that House Lalu deck that I showed off last week. So, first of all, we need to have some House Lalu cards or the deck just won't work at all. And Balmora Puppeteer works perfectly with this. Oops, didn't spin that Crusader's Assault just yet. Haunted Man is obviously excellent, but we don't want to have too many of these because they're kind of awkwardly cost supports. And if we get too many, it's just going to be a bit of a pain in our hand. We're also going to want stuff like Smuggler Underboss just because cards like this work really well with what Lalu does, as well as Duke Vidam Dread. Right, next we move on to what the deck was meant to be about, which is plot. So we type in plot here, and we basically have a look through all the cards that there are of plot that we have, and then I look at the ones I don't have, and I realise, are these cards necessary for the deck I'm trying to make? Here, not really, just because it's going to discard my entire hand and draw 3 cards. Usually with a deck like this, I'll have a lot of cards in hand, and unless I completely brick, a card like this would just be a bit of a waste. And we also don't have Kwama Queen, which is self-explanatory and not needed. And we also don't have Chidola's Treachery, which is a nice idea, but it's quite expensive, and is sort of situation whether we'd even want to steal a creature instead anyway. So from looking at the cards that we do have, we know that Sharpshooter's really good. Lower Canton Smith's also a very nice choice. And Kimono Tong Heavy's pretty decent, so we'll put 2 in for now. We can take them out later though. Kratis's Favour, nice for health. Moonmoth Castellan, good for guard. And then these ones are all really nice choices. Okay, so now I like to move on to looking at the multi-attribute cards I've been given the offer of. And as we're running decks like this, Crusader's Assault's always just nice for draw power. A Rift Vein never hurts. And Tyr, he's a Prophecy, and we do want something to kind of go back against them. Ulfric's Housecarl, that's always nice. Anasi, good for those situations where your opponent's got a lot of keywords. And Elaine is also quite nice. You may have noticed that I've still got on the kind of see all unknown cards as well. Just because there's ones like, say, Dune Ripper, which I wasn't really too big a fan of, so I just milled. And if I do want to make a deck with these in future, I'll have to expand my collection a bit. Anyway, if we just go back to normal mode for now, we'll look at draw power, because a deck like this is going to want some draw power. So things like Rapid Shot, they're nice and cheap early game cards. Bloodcrazed Daedroth, we're usually going to wound a creature, especially if we have a Rapid Shot, so that's a lot of draw power combos. What else do we have? These ones don't seem too useful for our situation, so we move on to Willpower. Eastmarch Crusader, yeah, we can easily usually break a rune. And Queen's Captain is a possibility, but we want to make sure that we have a nice curve. So we'll put it in for now, but if it starts to mess up the curve, it's probably one of our first choices to take out. Again, Bandari Opportunist, nice card. Thieves Guild Recruit. And we do obviously want quite a few low-cost cards in the deck like this because it's plot, so a lot of those cards only will get their effects if you played a card already this turn. Sometimes it's worth running Corner Club Gambler, but if you're like me and you don't like putting risk or high risk, high reward, because almost always they just get destroyed for me, I kind of try to avoid it, but if there's space for it, I'll add it later. Fresh Start's nice, but it is a bit slow, so we'll put a couple in for now, but if we get to a point where we realise we don't want them in the deck, we will take them out. Silent Pilgrim's really good because we have some very nice multi-attribute cards in the deck. And at this point I realise maybe now we want to start looking at some removal, so we'll type in, say, Destroy here. I mean, you can obviously just have damage or stuff like that for other words to get some different removal. But we'll take a couple Fell the Mighties. And then when you see cards like Lyris here, you look at the kind of curve we've got, and I realise, actually, that fits in quite well, so I'll take one of them. We then also know that we don't want too much removal, so we'll focus on things which kind of sort with the deck. And something you'll notice here is that I don't have many prophecies, so we'll put in 3 of these, And although we do have a complete deck, we do want to have a quick look through our collection and just see, is there anything else that we have which could make this curve a bit nice? Well, the curve is actually really nice here, but anything else which we think should really go in this deck. And usually you will see a few cards that you want to choose between, like, for instance, I don't know, Fighters Guild Berserker. Let's have a look at what's in our deck. We got a lot of actions, a few items and supports. Maybe I might want some of them in, but to be honest, I don't know if I personally would run them. Again, something like Morkel Gatekeeper, it would fit sort of in with the curve. It's got Prophecy, which is quite nice. And maybe I could take out a couple of the cards with draw power, like say maybe a Slime Marshblade and, I don't know, an Eastmarch Crusader to put 2 of them in. And then the curve's still got its effect. And, well, this deck's now got a few more Prophecies, so when runes break, I have a bit more faith that it will actually catch something. But that's roughly how I kind of plan making decks. If you guys want any more info into something like that, just let me know. Right, so on to the next question, which is, what do you think will happen in the Elder Scrolls 6? Now, when I first saw the teaser trailer, it was 5:30 AM and I was incredibly hyper, and I instantly thought it was High Rock. Obviously, there's a lot of disputes whether it's High Rock, Hammerfell, or both, but one thing I do kind of like, or at least the theories online, is the ones which lead to Dureni or Adamantine Tower, which is just off the face of High Rock. I feel like this location is one which does make a lot of sense, especially when reading the theories, that it will have something to do with the next Elder Scrolls game, as it's a magical place of power, which might really interest the Thalmor. And you might think, oh, the Thalmor and Skyrim, they're probably not going to appear again. But the thing is, Skyrim wasn't originally in their, like, plan, and the reason why I'm saying this is because that if you actually go back to Elder Scrolls Redguard, I know, that classic banger. If you look very slowly at the bit where it pans across the book names of the Elder Scrolls games, the final one begins with an R and then an O after Oblivion. And this is actually like the first place where they showed off the names of Oblivion and Morrowind. So it is sort of reliable, and I'm pretty sure in an interview with Bethesda, Todd Howard did say, or at least one of them said, that Skyrim wasn't in their original plan. I might be wrong though. So if anyone knows exactly what they said, feel free to put in the comments and correct me. But yeah, basically, I think the Thalmor are going to be involved with some sort of magical tinkering, which could be a big doom upon the world, and there'll also be some sort of, like, kind of, almost like the Civil War again, either in High Rock or Hammerfell, depending where it's set, but I'm not really too sure, because they haven't shown much other than a 37-second teaser. Okay, so the next question is, what's my favourite theme or themed deck in Elder Scrolls Legends? And I've definitely got to say that one that I've always enjoyed making, but then hated to play, would be the neutral Dwemer decks, which have slowly kind of evolved throughout my years of playing. And it's just a deck that I keep on love coming back to and slightly working on, because it's got some really cool ideas in there with, like, Halls of the Dwemer, and by the end of it had some really nice Factotum combos with the Assemble abilities, and they're just things that I didn't feel like got enough praise while they were in the game. And if they got the same treatment that Daedra got by the end, they could have been really powerful and really good. And the fact that they are neutral means that if you want to have some sort of technical abilities from any of the attributes, you could just add them to the deck and it wouldn't mess up your system or limit what you want to play at all with them. Okay, so the next question was, what is my favourite Elder Scrolls game? And it is really tough, but the original Legend Battlespire is just a peak classic. I mean, if you've never played it, well, let me tell you that that's all made up. It's Oblivion. I've never played Battlespire. I've seen some gameplay of it, and it's dated. I'll leave it at that. But it looks interesting though. But Oblivion is definitely my favourite one by far. I've made some amazingly fun Let's Plays on the channel with it. I remember when I started the Dark Brotherhood Let's Play, even though it barely got any views, I was just so happy with it. I put a lot of time into it, and I just had fun the entire way through. And like watching it back, editing, I was just laughing my head off at the stupid things I said. And I thought, oh, I got to do this a few more times. So I did Shivering Isles, Order of Virtuous Blood, and Knights of the Nine. I think it's just the world and the quests in that game just are really amazing to me. And I know people aren't too big a fan of the graphics back then, but I think they're fine, honestly. I don't really get annoyed or bothered by graphics, just because I'm much more of a fan of the actual stories the world tells, or the kind of creative ideas inside of the actual world itself. And Skyrim definitely did have some improvements on the game, but I felt like when it came to the actual writing of the quests, it did drop a bit. I'm not saying it went terrible, but I'm saying the quality just wasn't as high as it was in Oblivion. So the next question is, do I prefer early game or late game strategies? And it's definitely going to be late game, just because there's so many more cooler things that you can pull off when you get to that point. Because early game, it's all about just shutting down your opponent before they can do their late game strategy. And I feel like when you do get to the late game, it's not just you pulling off these really cool combos, but you get to see what your opponent does, and that can inspire you to make some really interesting decks as well. Or even just realise, that's a cool combo, I should fit that into this deck. The next question I got asked was, what is my favourite Elder Scrolls main and side quest? Well, for main quests, I went with Diplomatic Immunity from Skyrim, because I just love the idea of going to a party all covert and sneaking around the back. I believe that, in my opinion, Dragon Age Inquisition did the idea of this better with Wicked Eyes and Wicked Hearts, but I still think Skyrim did a very nice job at it. And for faction quest, it's got to be Whodunit, because just Whodunit's an amazing quest line. Like, when I was given the offer to do a card reveal for Whodunit, I was a bit like a fanboy for a few seconds, but it's just the fact of, you're at this party, everyone's all happy and joyous, and you're going around sneaking about, just killing people, and they're always like pointing at each other on who's the murderer, but if you do it well, they never even consider it's you. And you just get these wacky things that happen. And you may have gathered by these two favourite quests that I quite like it when games have parties but allow you to kind of go there and mess things up in them in your own professional style. And then I guess if I want to go for a pure side quest, I'd have to go with the Collector from Oblivion and kind of Secrets upon the Ayleids, his final quest, just because there's that whole build up to kind of this Ayleid investigation, and you do every once in a while feel like you're just being a heartless kind of rogue working for him, but it's just a really good quest overall. And if you've never actually played Oblivion, I might do a let's play on it just to show you guys how fun it is. I mean, it is that, or I have been considering, because we've hit 1,000 subscribers, just doing a main campaign let's play of Oblivion. I don't know, let me know in the comments what you want to see from me, if you're interested in any form of let's play on Oblivion, or other games like Dragon Age, Halo. I've been playing quite a lot of them recently. I was also asked what my least favourite quest is in any of the Elder Scrolls games, and I had to go with Waking Nightmare from Skyrim. It's not the worst quest in the world, it's got some amazing lore and decent writing. It's just the issue of that the guy you're with is so slow, and you have to just follow him everywhere, and if he was like following you, I would have preferred it so much more. And when it gets to the end, I have never spared him. I've always sided with Vermina and just killed him, because I don't want to see his character again. Also, I was asked what my favourite cards are in Gwent and Legends, because I've been playing both of them quite recently. And I'll start with Legends. I really like Assembled Titan and the rest of the Factotums, just because their abilities are so cool and how they work together. Aspect of Hircine has to be a classic for me, just because it has the guard form for if you need to play defensively, or more likely for me, just the speed form to end a game and really annoy your friends. Or at least I'm used to using him to finish games and annoy my friends back in the days of school. And finally, Mudcrab Merchant, just because it's a funny little card. It's really good for Unite the Houses decks, and it definitely allows you to kind of choose which card to take. And sometimes you just give your opponent a completely useless card which just sits in their hand taking up a space to annoy them. I mean, I would have also said Old Salty's Assault, but nah, I mean, Mudcrab Merchant's where most of the humour and coolness is. And then over in Gwent, I went with Gascon Bandit, mainly because I played through Thronebreaker a couple of months ago now and just loved it. And his character was really cool. When I got into Gwent and tried to make a bandit deck, Gascon Iron Falcon was just a go-to choice for that. Ulric's been really cool in the new Firesworn decks I've been making, which is doing incredibly well. Currently it's like 11-0 when I've played it. It had some games where I was like 2 cards down and should have lost, but I just don't. And finally, this Nilfgaardian card, I haven't got to put it in a deck yet, but just it's really cool looking, and it's to do with spies, and back in the day I used to love Nilfgaard spies, so I'm very excited to have a game in the future playing with it, because it it's definitely one that I want to have a go with. And the final question is, when do I think I'll hit 10,000 subscribers? Now, Social Blade thinks it's going to be early 2022, but realistically, I don't ever see it happening. I mean, if it did, it'd be amazing, but I just don't think I upload enough or have enough charisma to try and get people to subscribe. But anyway, those are some questions that I've been asked. Thank you guys so much for 1,000 subscribers. It means so much to me, and hopefully I'll see you next time in another video.